I'm a 43-year-old man, and my wife is 40. We've been married for 16 years and have 2 children, a 14-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old son. Our journey together started off rocky, but we managed to overcome those tough years and emerged stronger. We married young, perhaps a bit too idealistic, believing love alone could conquer any obstacle. Over time, our careers flourished. My wife became a manager at a major advertising company 3 years ago, while I have been in engineering for 7 years. Our jobs provide us with a comfortable lifestyle. Despite our demanding schedules, we made it a priority to be a close-knit family, creating wonderful memories for our children. I have always taken pride in being a good husband and father, though I am not without my flaws. Recently, I made a discovery that shook me to my core. My wife had been involved in a long-term affair. The signs had been there over the past 2 years. She had become increasingly distant, uninterested in anything I did. She frequently compared me to her boss, praising how he handled things better, subtly chipping away at my confidence. She criticized my lack of initiative, especially when it came to romantic gestures. When I asked what she wanted, her response was always vague. "You should already know what to do." Feeling lost, I turned to research, reading books, seeking advice, desperate to reignite our love life. But no matter what I did, my efforts were met with little appreciation at best, or outright disappointment at worst. This wasn't the woman I had known for years. I felt a growing need to fix whatever was wrong. Little did I know the problem was never mine to fix. We had become close friends with her boss and his wife, frequently spending time together as families. Our children got along, and it all seemed natural. What I didn't realize was that this friendship was a convenient cover for their affair. Ironically, I confided in her boss about our marital struggles. He listened, offering seemingly sincere advice, and I genuinely believed he wanted to help. I never suspected that he was the very reason my wife had grown cold toward me. One night, I noticed her giggling while texting someone in bed. Curiosity got the best of me, so I leaned over to take a look. She reacted instantly, yanking her phone away and demanding to know what I was doing. I explained that I simply wanted to see what was so amusing, but she snapped, saying it was none of my business before storming into the bathroom. That moment planted the first real seed of suspicion in my mind. The following day, I confronted her about my concerns. She exploded in anger, vehemently denying any wrongdoing. When I asked to see her phone, she refused outright. Later that night, she begrudgingly handed it over, but nearly every conversation with specific individuals had been erased. The gaps were obvious, messages that didn't add up, entire threads missing. I handed the phone back without a word, determined to find the truth on my own. A month later, with the help of a tech-savvy friend, I recovered fragments of deleted messages. The proof was damning. My worst fears were confirmed. She had been having an affair with her boss. But I knew that confronting her immediately would only lead to more lies. I needed more evidence. During this time, I was consumed with thoughts of how this would affect our children. The weight of it all crushed me. I even broke down in front of my friend, struggling to accept the betrayal. Despite everything, I wasn't ready to give up on my marriage. 3 days later, I bought a book titled How to Help Your Spouse Heal from an Affair. Naive as it may seem, I hoped that if I gave it to my wife, she would realize her mistake and choose to end the affair. I desperately wanted to salvage what we had built together. That Saturday, I planned to sit down with her and talk, but she informed me that there was an emergency at work and told me not to wait up. My gut told me something was off. To verify, I called her workplace, only to be told that the office was closed on Saturdays. I tried calling her phone, no answer. She finally came home at 2 a.m. Sunday morning, heading straight to the shower before slipping into bed. Frustrated, I asked why she was so late. She dismissed me coldly, reminding me that she had already told me not to wait up. I had had enough. I didn't give her the book. I was suffering, but she seemed indifferent to my pain. Over the next few weeks, I was consumed by thoughts of how this would affect our children. The weight of it all crushed me. I even broke down in front of my friend, struggling to accept the betrayal. Despite everything, I wasn't ready to give up on my marriage. 3 days later, I bought a book titled How to Help Your Spouse Heal from an Affair. Naive as it may seem, I hoped that if I gave it to my wife, she would realize her mistake and choose to end the affair. I desperately wanted to salvage what we had built together. That Saturday, I planned to sit down with her and talk, but she informed me that there was an emergency at work and told me not to wait up. My gut told me something was off. To verify, I called her workplace, only to be told that the office was closed on Saturdays. I tried calling her phone, no answer. She finally came home at 2 a.m. Sunday morning, heading straight to the shower before slipping into bed. Frustrated, I asked why she was so late. She dismissed me coldly, reminding me that she had already told me not to wait up. I had had enough. I didn't give her the book. I was suffering, but she seemed indifferent to my pain. Desperate for clarity, I reached out to her boss's wife. I don't regret that decision to this day. She was just as shocked as I was, furious, devastated. She wanted to confront her husband immediately, but I cautioned her, knowing he would only lie and cover his tracks. Instead, we agreed to gather more evidence separately before making our move. With a renewed focus, I started watching my wife more carefully. Her boss's wife did the same on her end. It turned out to be shockingly easy to gather undeniable proof. Her husband was so arrogant that he hadn't even bothered to delete incriminating texts. The fragments I had recovered now made complete sense. We finally had the full picture of their 2-year affair. We were furious. Revenge crossed our minds, but we chose to rise above it. Instead, we prepared for divorce quietly, meticulously. We put everything in order: legal affairs, finances, everything. By the time we were ready to serve the papers, our spouses were still carrying on, completely oblivious to what was coming. We knew exactly where they planned to spend their weekend together. With the help of the sheriff, I made my move. I waited in the hotel lobby, my heart pounding. When my wife was called down from her room, she appeared in a bathrobe, her face instantly draining of color when she saw me. Panic set in. She demanded to know what I was doing there. The sheriff verified her identity, and in her stunned state, she confirmed it. That's when she was served with the divorce papers. Seeing the shock on her face was undeniably satisfying, but I refused to gloat. I simply turned to leave, knowing the job was done. But she wasn't ready to let me go. She grabbed my arm, desperately demanding an explanation. "You had an affair," I told her flatly. "I'm leaving you." Her reaction was explosive. She screamed, her grip tightening painfully. The sheriff had to intervene, instructing her to let me go. I walked away, leaving her standing there in a mess of her own making. Later, I learned that she had informed her boss, and in his panic, he rushed home, only to be served with divorce papers as well. We hadn't given them time to plan their excuses, to twist the narrative. They were blindsided, just as they had blindsided us. Now, as our divorces move toward finalization, they are both fighting tooth and nail, insisting that it was just physical, that they never intended to leave their families. They argue that couples have survived worse and rebuilt their marriages. But for me, there is no going back. This chapter of my life is closing, and I intend to walk away with my dignity intact. They're hoping for a chance to reframe the situation. I've asked my wife what she expects the outcome to be, and she says she's going with the flow. She claims her actions were completely out of character and that she's not that person anymore. But I'm not so sure. She called me bitter and resentful, unable to look past the negativity. She later apologized, but I can't help but think that's how she truly feels. I still maintain contact with the boss's wife, and my wife absolutely despises it. She believes I might have revenge on my mind, or that the boss's wife is influencing my decisions. She's repeatedly asked me to initiate no contact with her, just as she did with her boss. I've told her I think she's being irrational. We haven't done anything wrong, so why should I respect her opinions now? Honestly, I think I'm done. I've lost respect for her, yet she refuses to let go, actively trying to engage with me about her thoughts and justifications regarding the affair. To me, they all sound like excuses, so I no longer entertain her attempts. She has asked me to consider therapy, but I've read stories where therapists shift the blame onto the victim, which makes me reluctant. I thought, hell no. She also suggested reading infidelity books together, but I couldn't see the point if we're headed for divorce anyway. She's expressed a desire to be intimate, but I told her it felt like manipulation, and I wasn't going to be swayed by it. She insisted it wasn't manipulation, that she just wanted to show me how much she loved me. I corrected her. Loved me. Past tense. People around me, including my mother, are frustrated with my stance. They argue that people make mistakes, that my wife realized her love for me through her mistakes, and that I shouldn't shut the door on reconciliation too quickly. But I've been firm. I won't be anyone's fallback plan. I'm caught in a web of conflicting emotions. There's still love there, but it's tangled up with anger and hurt. I wonder if I'm being unnecessarily cruel to her. She's making a genuine effort to make amends, but I find it hard to care anymore. The question that haunts me is whether I should reconsider the divorce. People warn me that I might be moving too quickly and that I'll regret it. I want to clarify that my wife and I are in a somewhat stable place right now, but that doesn't mean we're reconciling. I'm still determined to go through with the divorce. My wife, on the other hand, is begging for another chance and going to great lengths to earn it. However, I can't easily forgive a 2-year affair. It's just too much to move past. We've attended a few therapy sessions together, not because I want to save the marriage deep down, but because I still care for her. One session was particularly helpful. It made me realize that my wife is genuinely remorseful. She hasn't handled the aftermath of her affair perfectly, but she has made considerable effort. The second session, though, was a disaster. My wife got upset with me for continuously contacting the boss's wife, whom I'll call Robin. She was afraid I might seek revenge. It was one of the angriest moments throughout this ordeal, and we argued extensively afterward because I refused to comply with her request to cut off contact. We resolved it when I promised there would be no revenge affair. While I don't owe her anything, she's still my wife until the divorce is finalized, and I want to uphold my commitments. I've continued therapy, not to fix our marriage, but to see her progress for myself. Our therapist works with individuals and couples, which helps in addressing both perspectives. Meanwhile, Robin is also leaving her husband, whom I'll call Ed. He's resisting the divorce just as fiercely as my wife. Robin and I confide in each other on difficult days, but I want to emphasize, there's no affair between us. We are just friends. Robin is strong, independent, and doesn't tolerate nonsense. My kids are doing okay. They understand that our divorce doesn't mean we love them any less. While they don't want it, they comprehend why it's necessary, and we've discussed it with them in an age-appropriate manner. My wife resigned from the advertising company where the affair took place shortly after I served her with divorce papers. She claims she's had no contact with Ed and has been seeking advice online on how to save our marriage. As the divorce proceedings moved forward, my wife became more desperate. She wasn't just apologizing anymore. She was pleading, bargaining, and doing everything she could to convince me that our marriage was worth saving. She even wrote me a long emotional letter detailing how much she regretted everything. She admitted she had taken me for granted, let herself be consumed by the thrill of something new, and had been too arrogant to see what she was destroying in the process. It was a well-written letter. If I had received it a year ago, maybe it would have meant something. But now? It just felt like empty words. I didn't respond to the letter, and she noticed. One night, she sat across from me at the kitchen table, eyes red from crying. "Did you even read it?" she asked. "I did," I answered truthfully. "Then why won't you say anything?" I sighed. "Because nothing I say will change what happened. You made your choices, and I made mine." She shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I don't want to lose you." I didn't respond. "You hate me now, don't you?" she whispered. That caught my attention. "No," I said, shaking my head. "I don't hate you. If I did, this would be easier." She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. The hurt in her eyes was unmistakable, but I couldn't give her false hope. Over the next few weeks, my wife tried to prove herself in small ways. She started cooking my favorite meals, cleaning more than usual, and even asked me if I wanted to go out as a family, just the two of us and the kids. I agreed, for the sake of the kids. And to be fair, she was on her best behavior. No arguments, no pleading, just a family outing like we used to have. But as much as I appreciated her effort, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was all too little, too late. Meanwhile, Robin's divorce was also getting ugly. Her husband, Ed, refused to accept it and was pulling every trick in the book to stall the process. He begged, threatened, and even tried using their kids as leverage. But Robin was strong. She wasn't backing down. We continued supporting each other through everything. I could talk to her without filters, without judgment. She understood my pain because she was living it too. And of course, my wife noticed. One evening, she confronted me about it. "I think you have feelings for Robin," she said bluntly. I frowned. "Where is this coming from?" "You talk to her more than you talk to me," she said, crossing her arms. "Whenever you get a text, I know it's from her." "She's going through the same thing I am," I said calmly. "We're just supporting each other." Her jaw clenched. "And what happens after the divorces are finalized? Are you two going to end up together?" I exhaled. "I don't know what the future holds, but right now, Robin and I are just friends. That's it." She didn't believe me. I could see it in her face. A few days later, my lawyer informed me that my wife was trying to stall the divorce. She had filed a request for marriage counseling to be completed before the divorce could proceed. I was furious. She knew I had no interest in reconciliation, yet she was trying to legally force me into counseling. I confronted her immediately. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, holding up the legal document. "Because I refuse to let go without a fight," she shouted. "I love you and I know we can fix this." I shook my head. "This isn't love. This is desperation, and I won't let you trap me in a marriage I don't want anymore." Her eyes filled with tears, but I was too exhausted to care. I fought the request, and eventually the court ruled that I wasn't obligated to attend counseling if I was certain I wanted a divorce. That was the breaking point for her. She finally realized that no matter what she did, no matter how much she begged, our marriage was beyond saving. And with that realization, she changed. She stopped trying, stopped apologizing, stopped acting remorseful. It was like a switch had flipped. She became cold, distant, and almost bitter. She started making passive-aggressive comments, questioning my parenting, and even hinting that I was emotionally neglectful toward our kids. It was clear she had given up on reconciliation and was now focused on punishing me instead. Robin warned me that this might happen. "Once she realizes she can't win you back, she'll turn on you," she had said. "Be prepared." And she was right. My wife started using our kids as leverage. She suddenly became more strict about custody schedules, refusing to swap weekends even if I had something important planned with them. She began bad-mouthing me in subtle ways. Nothing outright, but enough that my kids started asking questions. "Did you really stop loving Mom?" my son asked me one night. I had to sit down and explain everything in the most gentle, age-appropriate way possible. It broke my heart, but I refused to let her twist the narrative. The final straw came when she accused me of having an affair with Robin. I received a message from her out of nowhere. "I know about you and Robin. Don't bother denying it." I was stunned. I knew she was angry, but this? I called her immediately. "There is no affair," I told her firmly. She scoffed. "Right. You expect me to believe that? You spend all your time talking to her, confiding in her. Do you even realize how inappropriate that is?" "She's my friend," I said, exasperated. "And frankly, after what you did, you don't get to lecture me on what's inappropriate." She went silent for a moment. Then she muttered, "You never talk to me like you talk to her." That's when I realized the truth. It wasn't just about Robin. It was about the fact that I had stopped choosing her. She had spent years taking me for granted, believing I would always be there no matter what. And now that I was moving on, she couldn't stand it. The divorce was finalized 2 months later. She didn't show up to the final hearing. She just signed the papers and let it happen. I felt relief. There was no celebration, no grand moment of victory, just a quiet, exhausted relief. Robin and I still talk, but we're taking things slow. There's no rush. Right now, we're just two people who understand each other's pain. As for my ex-wife, she's still bitter, still upset that I moved on while she's stuck in regret. But that's not my problem anymore. This chapter of my life is officially closed. And for the first time in years, I feel free.